Hey everybody, Adam here with Hometown Acres. Welcome back. So today's video is sponsored by Hohn Health. Thanks to Hohn, the rest of this video is going to be brought to you ad-free. But what's on the agenda for today is we are going to be talking about a couple different ways to measure your firewood all the same length. So for starters, let's talk about why that's important and why I care so much about making sure that my firewood is cut all the same length, and more importantly, the right length. Let's head into the garage and I'll show you why. So I heat our garage with a wood stove, and as you can see, this garage is getting pretty cramped for space. We've got the tractor, my wife's car, my truck, and as we come around here, there's the wood stove, and we've got the four-wheeler and the side-by-side over on that side. So we are pretty jam-packed in here, but the good news is right now, I don't have anything that's getting covered in snow. We do have a new garage build that we're gonna be starting here the end of March, beginning of April, so that will alleviate some of the tightness in this garage here, which will be nice. I think we're gonna park the truck, my wife's vehicle, and the tractor in the new garage, so I'll just have a lawnmower and the two ATVs in this garage. So back to the topic of today's video. Why is it so important to cut all your firewood the same length, or at least make sure you've got it under a certain threshold? The reason is my wood stove that we heat this garage with is only about 18 inches deep. So when I go to put a piece of wood in, like this one right here, and I go to put that in there, that piece right there is too long. I will not be able to get the door closed. So what I have to do to make that work is I've got to put it in there diagonally. Now, when I put that in there diagonally like that, you can see I've got a lot less room for wood. Instead of being able to get 3 pieces across the bottom and 3 pieces across the top, I am pretty much limited to getting 2 pieces in there diagonally like that. And what that does is it creates more work for me. I've got to come out here more frequently to reload the wood stove because I'm only getting 2 pieces in instead of 6. I'm not getting as hot of fires and I'm not getting as long of burn times. So that is why cutting firewood the same length and the right length is important to me. Now, neighbor Doug texted me the other day and he said, hey, I want to start cutting all my firewood the same length. What have you come up with to do that? And we actually did a video about a year ago talking about how we made this $6 DIY hack to cut the perfect firewood. And it worked at the time we made that video. And all I did was I took this 1/2-inch CPVC and I super glued it to a rare earth strong magnet here. I think it's good for like 11 or 12 pounds or something. Definitely strong enough to hold it onto the bar of your chainsaw. And you just put it on there and it gives you a good indicator of what 16 inches is. Well, the problem is that super glue only lasted for about 2 weeks. And I don't know if it was the change in temperatures, hot, cold, that broke that or what. But basically I need to find a better way to fasten this magnet to the CPVC. So as you guys know, neighbor Doug is kind of like MacGyver. He's got all kinds of crazy inventions and comes up with some pretty cool stuff. And I think he came up with 2 or 3 different ideas on measuring firewood all the same length. So let's head over to neighbor Doug's house and see what he's come up with. Also, down in the comments below, leave me a good nickname for neighbor Doug to kind of encapsulate his creative genius. I'll be really curious to see what you guys come up with. Some things we've gotten in the past is MacGyver, but I want to see if you guys come up with something better than that. Let's see what Doug's got for us. Guys, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Hohn Health. Hohn is the premier online men's health clinic helping men improve their mood, energy, sex drive, mental acuity, and fitness, all by addressing low testosterone. Now, I'm not a medical expert. I'm just a guy who turned 30 this year, and from all the research that I've done online, the age 30 is where all of your hormone levels start to drop. So I wanted to get tested now so I can see where all my levels are, and that way I have a benchmark to compare over the years as I start to age. Now, I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical when Hohn reached out to us to start talking about low testosterone just because of the stigma surrounding that topic. Like it makes you less of a man if you suffer from it. And after doing some research, that's just not the case. Over 30 million men across the United States suffer from low T, and it's just a natural part of aging. As you get older, your body stops producing as much of that hormone, and that's where Hohn is there to help. The process literally couldn't be easier. You just order the at-home assessment with the link in the description below, collect your sample, and mail it back to the lab. Once the results are in, you'll be able to schedule an online video consultation with a doctor, and they'll go over the results with you and tell you, here's where you're high, here's where you're low, here's what we gotta fix. And then they'll recommend a personalized treatment plan, including FDA-approved medications. Hohn never leaves you hanging after getting prescribed, and they're there with you every step of the way to help make your life better for longer. The best part is it only costs $45 for the test, results, and doctor consultation. That's it, $45 to figure out where you stand and if you've got room for improvement. Please check out the link below, and thanks to Hohn for sponsoring today's video. All right, so we're over here at Doug's, and this is Doug's fire pit. And previously, Doug didn't really care much about the size of the firewood or the length or the consistency, and you can see why. This fire pit, the inner diameter is about 3 feet, right?
Yeah, 3 to, it might even actually be bigger than that. If we didn't have a foot of snow on it, we'd be able to tell for sure. But...
Yeah. So why do you now care about the length of the firewood and that it's all the same size, and what we're talking about today is the right size?
Well, when I was normally cutting firewood, I would just go out and eyeball it up and cut it to what looked about right. And it usually ended up anywhere from 16 to 24 inches. And I would stack it out, you know, underneath the roof in the shed over there, and no big deal. Just stack it in rows. I never really thought much about it. And then when I started seeing how you were doing it in those IBC totes, I thought, man, that's a fabulous way to move one stack. And I mean, I got a set of pallet forks, so I could put it on a piece of equipment and bring that IBC tote here over to the fire pit when we're having campfires and whatever. But when I transferred all my cut firewood into those IBC totes, yep, it was a horrible joke. I had 24-inch long ones and 16-inch long ones, and it didn't work out well. So after I got a couple of those totes, I realized I really need to cut these at 16-inch lengths to do 2 double stack rows.
We were talking about the depth of those IBC totes is 36 inches. So ideally, you know, you'd have 2 rows of 18-inch long pieces of firewood, but you want to leave yourself some room for error. So that's why we're kind of working with 16 inches as the length we want to work with.
Yeah, and it works out nice. I mean, I see a lot of people cut it at 16. It seems like a majority of people cut it at 16. I don't know that for a fact, but it just works out really easy for stacking it quickly in those IBC totes.
Yep. All right, let's head inside the garage. It's cold out here today, and we'll see what you come up with. All right, Doug, so how many ideas you got for us, and what are they here?
Well, again, they're not my ideas. I actually was watching one of your videos and saw the magnetic pole on the side of the bar, and I thought, well, that seems like it would work out pretty good. And so I made one of them up, and what I did was, basically I've created a magnet that had a thread in it, and it threads into this rod, and then here's my end that tells what my length is, so I can stick it on the side of the saw. And again, none of these are original ideas. They're all over the
Something
internet.
That sparked your interest and you made one and made it better.
Yeah, I mean, once you realize that you need to cut your logs at a particular length, then that's what made this a bunch easier. So I thought, well, I don't have anything like that. I need to try and come up and make something. So made this.
Now, would you say the rod was made out of?
It's made out of an aluminum arrow bolt. And what that is, it was just a broken arrow or a broken bolt from a crossbow, and it's extremely light, real thin, pretty durable and rigid, and it's got its threaded cap in there where the tip would thread in, so that made it really easy to get a magnet that had a piece of thread on the end of it. And I can actually, real quick, there was a magnet similar to that. Okay. And you just put a thread in that and it threaded in there.
See, and that's the problem I ran into, was fastening the magnet to the measuring stick.
Yeah. So that's threaded in there, and then you seen me earlier here. This was my end piece, and I said the one thing that I don't like about having this ring on there is when I'm on the saw and I make my mark here with the chain and then I bring it over, every once in a while this thing will get caught in that groove, and it puts it in a bind or kicks it off or knocks it off. And then Adam looks at me and says, why don't you just take it off? Yeah. Okay, well, that's simple. So basically I just took a little thumb head, and you can unscrew it out of that end and put it on there, and then you just eyeball the length you need.
And that's what we were talking about too, is we're going for 16 inches, but whether it's 15 3/4 or 16 1/4, that's not so much what we're worried about. We're more concerned about, you know, cutting it at 14 inches or 19 inches. We want it to be pretty close. So just having this on here as an eyeball guide is good enough.
And that's where, with, like you were talking about the IBC totes, if they're 36 inside and you go 16 on the length of your log and you're plus or minus an inch on each one, it doesn't matter because you've still got that little bit of leeway in the basket, and it works out really well doing it that way. So there's that one. And then after watching several videos, I seen another fella that he put 3 zip ties on the side of his saw handle, and I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. So I come out here and I looked, and I've got these really heavy duty, these are pretty close to a 1/2 inch wide zip tie, and here's what it looks like. So it's so big it's actually got two teeth inside of it there, and I basically just strap that on there and mark that off out at 16 inches and cut it off. So it's 16 from the side of the bar out.
Right.
And what he does is basically the same thing. Then he'll take and put his notch in the log and eyeball this to the next one and go on down the road. And then when you're done with it, you can fold it back, or if you're going to go ahead and cut your log, fold it back and it's out of the way. And I actually think I'm going to like this one the best.
Yeah.
As long as the aligning it up is easy to do, then it's out of the way.
Well, the only downside I can see with that one, and the benefit of this one is, say you're cutting on this side, I'd probably go with that one. But let's say for whatever reason you want to be working your way down the log the other way, this one can go on both sides.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny when you said that, when you want to, somebody would say, well, why can't you just go down the log? Well, sometimes you have a big limb or a treetop that's on the other side of the log, and let's say it's on this side I'm standing, and I can't just go down through the log, I've got to get on the other side. That's where having it on that side makes it nice.
Yep.
And then here's the one that I haven't seen yet anywhere. This was one of my creations. The reason I come up with this one was, on occasion, if I'm going out and I'm cutting a log and I want it to end at an exact length, so I don't have those little chunks. Now I've watched you, we put it through the Yappa processor, and you've got those little blocks that are left over from log after log after log, and you can't always control that. But if I'm cutting it myself up in the woods and I want to haul an entire log down the woods, and I want it to be whatever that factor is at 16 inches. So I looked at the loggers tape measures. I was just astounded that those things are anywhere from 45 to 60 bucks a piece.
Right.
And the measurements on them are a little bit different. They can do diameters and things like that and tell you the amount of wood that's in the diameter of the log. So what I did was I went over to the big box store there and picked up I think it was an $11 or $12 tape measure. And I took the short little end piece off of it and made my own and put a big spike in the end and a long tongue on that.
So that way you can stick it into the end of the log.
Yeah, that way
just like a logger's tape.
Yeah, that way when I hook it into that log, even if it moves a little bit, it's not going to jump off of there. So it was just, I got to thinking, okay, I need something a little bigger than what comes on there. So I created one of those and re-riveted that in, and then I put a little bit of a chain on it. So if I'm out cutting, I can hook it into my pocket on this side and into my belt loop. So now when I'm doing this, I can run the tape out. And what I did was I spray painted 16-inch increments about an inch wide. Because like you said, it doesn't have to be exact.
Right.
So now if I want to take and hook this onto a log, I can go down through and measure that. Now, here's the only downside. It's 20-some degrees out today.
Yep.
You got to take a can of spray paint with you, or chalk, or whatever somebody would use. I don't happen to have chalk right now, but so you hook this on into your log. You go out, every 16 inches, and the main reason what makes this one nice is let's say I want to go out and I want to cut a 16-foot log. Okay, I want to cut them at 16s. I know that right here, my last blue line, which is on the 16-foot mark, that's where I'm going to cut that log.
Right.
So when I drag that log down, I know that I've got equal increments of 16 inches to cut off, and I don't have that little chunk, or I don't have one that's 12 inches on my last piece.
Right.
I think we're going to maybe give some of these a try today if we can find a log.
Let's go find a tree, cut it down, and we'll put all 3 of these to the test here.
Look at all the deer tracks Hopefully this isn't too awful washed out, so we're gonna go fast. We can
Oh, you got it.
if we cut that one up high here, it's leaning real hard that way.
All right, so once again, we are going to disclaim that Doug nor I are experts at taking trees down. So this is just how we're doing it, not how you should do it. Perfect.
Kind of where we wanted it.
Yeah.
For guys that don't do this every day, that gets your heart rate going.
Now I know people are going to ask, why are you using such a small saw?
It worked.
Everybody in the comments, that's why. It worked.
I've got a bigger one, but for today's purposes, the bigger one didn't have this on it. And, you know, this guy's pretty easy. And I really wasn't coming out here looking for that quite big of a tree, but it was dead.
And as long as you got a sharp chain on it, it's going to chew through it.
Yeah.
We're not out here to break any speed records. So.
Yeah. All right, so we got the log down, or the tree down. And we're going to try this fancy little logger's tape that I made. Hook it on here. Just give a little poke into the end. And brought my can of spray paint. You could do this with chalk. You could do it with spray paint. I was kind of curious if this was going to freeze up on us. So now that we got this last increment of 16 inches marked out, I know that when I cut this, it should be 16 equal lengths, and I won't have a short little stubby piece at the end. And it'll be the same, so we're going to go ahead and try it with the attachment tools on the saw, see how close we come to these actual markings. What makes a difference here is if this is straight, it puts me close to 17 inches. If it's cantered in or kicked in a little bit, that puts me right at about 16. So when I originally started, I had that straight out, and you can see that each cut is almost an inch over from the mark.
So the further down the log we go, the more we keep getting off from what we know is measured with a tape.
Yep, so it keeps exaggerating it as we go along.
So that's another con to the zip tie, is you got to make sure that angle doesn't change on you as you're working with the saw.
Yep, so what I'll do now is I'll put the magnet on the side of it, and we'll start at the last dot here, knowing the tape measure is the ultimate perfect measurement. So I'll start here and do my next one and see how those increments line up. But this has given us a good indication of how far you can actually get off just by doing it by eyeball.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cuts that we made there, and we're already off by 5 or 6 inches there.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do.
The other thing I like is that where your marking tool is, you're pretty close to it. With this one, you're a lot further back here, and it's harder to line up.
If you notice all the cuts here, they're not quite perpendicular with the log. They're almost at an angle. Yep. And that's because you're trying to line up your handlebar with the blade of the saw.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. I'm not even looking at where the saw is at. I'm looking at where this is at.
So I'd say that one's a lot more accurate, right?
It's a lot more accurate, yeah. I do think so. The con is it can get in the way, fall off, you have to store it.
Right.
Where this one stays on the saw, you have more of a chance of being off with this, but it still gets you within the realm.
So we talked about why it's important for me because of the inner dimensions of my firebox and my wood stove. We talked about why it's important to Doug because of stacking it in the IBC totes. Let me know in the comments below if you guys care about cutting your firewood the same length and why, and if not, let us know that too. So here's one more of Doug's invention ideas. It's a little bit off topic for today, but we thought we'd show you. And it's not really a new idea. It's just an improvement over an old idea. Any of you guys out there that have split wood by hand, I'm sure you've seen people use tires to hold your blocks of wood together while you're splitting them, hold them upright. Or people will take bungees and put them around, or chains or something. But I'll let Doug explain why this is better.
Well, as kids, when we grew up, we used to split by hand all the time. We never had hydraulic log splitters or any of those things. So when you're young, it's not that big of a deal. But when you're getting older, and 100 times bending over a day makes you want to rest for a day, this really makes it nice because you can load it up like you see. Adam's got 3 logs in there that fit well within this tire. And what it was is just an old car tire that I took and I cut most of the sidewall out of it. And I put some wood blocks in there and I screwed lag screws into the side of the wood blocks to keep it up off the ground. 2 things that does is, one is it gets you a little bit higher up on your 16-inch log, so when it splits it doesn't tip or jump up out of there. And the other thing it does is all the bark and everything that falls off, you literally can just take and tip this over and the bark and stuff falls out instead of just continuously piling it up in there. And I put a piece of 3/4 inch plywood on the base of it. And what that allows me to do is split on the concrete, split on the blacktop, or split out into the grass yard because it gives that solid base. And I know as kids we used to split wood and we would set that log in the same spot. By the end of the day we had a 4-inch hole in the ground from where we just kept pounding and pounding on logs all day. So
yeah, if you want to make one of these yourselves, that piece of plywood there makes this about a $300 item.
yeah. Fortunately, I had a piece of this laying around. It was scrap. I tried to save all the scrap. So let's get into some hand splitting and see how this works. You guys get an idea.
Now, I've got to say, that is way faster than the Easton Made Axis even, which is a commercial hydraulic splitter, but this is all nice straight grained ash.
Hey, don't tell them that.
Yeah.
Don't tell them our secrets.
But as you can see, it keeps everything upright. It looks awesome. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, it didn't have to bend over at all. So like when you're done, if you want to pick out the big stuff, or you want to just tip it out for your next round, you're good to go. One benefit about the tire is if you come through that log and it hits the side, you're not destroying the handle of the splitter, so it comes down through, hits that tire, doesn't destroy your splitting handle, and works pretty good. We're gonna let Adam give it a try.
I gotta worry about hitting the ceiling here. I'm a little bit taller. Piece of cake.
Now tell me, how satisfying does that feel?
That's awesome.
To be able to just sail down through. Now granted, yes, I purposely picked a dead ash because I know how easy they split.
I don't know about you, Doug, but that looks like a pretty nice load of firewood there. I think the reason it looks so nice is it's all cut the same length.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I think that's gonna about wrap this one up. I wanna thank Hohn Health for sponsoring today's video. Also, don't forget, down in the comments below, leave me a good nickname for neighbor Doug. And if you cut all your firewood the same length, let me know if you've got any good ideas different from what we covered today. Also, why it's important to you, or if it's not, let me know that too. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this one, give me a big thumbs up, click that subscribe button. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. So I left Doug's and I ran to the grocery store to pick up a few things, and when I got back home, all that wood that was in the back of the side-by-side, he brought over here and hand-delivered. So I thought I would just show you how much better 16-inch firewood fits in this wood stove than those pieces we threw in at the beginning. And that's why you cut your firewood at 16 inches. You fit a lot more wood in there and I don't have to come back out here and restock it as often, and I get a hotter fire.